Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox, and we have another subject in which the SNP are failing spectacularly. I told you it's a very mixed bag today. We've looked at everything. We've looked at policy, at finance, at health, at education, at the NHS. We're now going to look at the police because this is another one of those deliberate policy areas where decisions are made and they know in advance that these decisions are wrong, but they can't help themselves because they won't spend money where it's needed. They'll only spend money on independence. And so now there is a massive amount of redundancies going on within the police force, even though it is already dangerously undermanned, underfunded, under-resourced. And yet it's about to get worse. Whole areas, whole swathes of the country, which are basically unpoliced and unpoliceable, with some crimes not even going to be investigated. And now they're issuing redundancy notices to the police. Is the plan here that there's no one going to be available to inspect and investigate them? Maybe they'll get away with everything. Let's have a look and see what's going on and see how bad it is going to get. Here goes. So again, we've got one of those areas where it isn't accidental. It isn't a result of coincidence or anything. It is the result of deliberate policy. The destruction of justice in Scotland. The removal of the police. They've known about it for a long time. They've been told. They've been warned. And still this is happening. It's therefore deliberate policy, like so many areas. And I can think the only reason they want to totally destroy the police is that without the police, no one will investigate anything that the SNP are doing. It's going to become a kleptocracy, and the biggest thieves of them all are the ones in charge. Police Scotland redundancies are inevitable consequence of SNP ignoring warnings about cuts, and yet they keep trying to spin it. Oh, we give more and more money to the police. Yes, but if it's less than inflation, then it's real term cuts, and that's what's been happening ever since you've been in power. There hasn't been 1 year in which police got a real terms rise in money. The National Force has opened up on a voluntary redundancy scheme to try and cut costs in a move that could have a devastating impact on frontline policing. Well, what do you think? You're already massively undermanned, and now you're offering early retirement and redundancy to people. Is this going to make any difference? Is this going to improve policing in Scotland? Or is Scotland about to become a lawless Wild West, ruled by criminal gangs that are out there and doing anything they like, knowing that there are no repercussions to their actions? I think we already know what the answer to this is. This is madness, and this at least should mean that Westminster steps in and dissolves Holyrood simply to protect the innocent people of Scotland who are about to be murdered in their own beds, effectively. Police Scotland's decision to launch a voluntary redundancy process for staff has been described as the inevitable consequence of SNP cuts. And if they're cutting, then they know. And therefore, as I say, it's a deliberate policy. The National Force confirmed a move on Tuesday as it desperately tries to save funds. Staff seeking either voluntary redundancy or voluntary early retirement will be able to apply from January the 8th until February the 9th. The move was approved by the Scottish Police Authority Board last week and will be open to staff with a minimum of 2 years continuous service. And then out they go. It's going to cost a lot of money to pay off the redundancies, especially for staff that are, been there 20, 30 years. For the early retirements, it's going to cost a lot. You're losing a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. And for what? To save a few shekels so that you can produce yet more shiny, pointless brochures about an independence that will never, ever happen. It's criminal, and I don't mean that lightly. I mean what the SNP are doing must be criminal. Some exemptions were made to ensure that the continued operational effectiveness, and staff were told that not all applications would be accepted. It comes as the force warns that without an additional 128 million minimum, officer numbers could drop by almost 1,500, and it may move to a reduced attendance model nationwide. In other words, they'll only turn up if they want to. The Scottish Government is set to outline its budget later this month, with the force braced for real-time cuts from SNP ministers. The destruction of society will follow. It's undoubted. Without a police force, there is only a Wild West scenario. It is a failing state, and it is deliberate. It is policy. It is designed deliberately to destroy everything. The innocents, the vulnerable, they will be the ones that will suffer. It will be the era of the criminal. Thieves, killers, psychopaths, roaming the streets, unpoliced, doing what the hell they like. And that is the Scotland that's happening under the SNP. Scottish Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Russell Findlay MSP said, sadly, this is the inevitable consequence of SNP ministers ignoring Police Scotland's repeated warnings about the impact of their funding cuts. Police numbers are around the lowest level for 15 years, and predictably crime rates are rising. The SNP must reverse their brutal underfunding of the Police Scotland and provide the resources needed to keep our streets safe. But they won't, because their policy is to destroy the police and to destroy society. They know they're out. They know they're finished. And they are going down, all guns blazing, to totally destroy Scotland in the process. If they can't have it, nobody will. It is an absolute mutual destruction by the SNP. Police and staff were given a 7% pay award this year, 3% below inflation, and the Chief Constable Joe Farrell told a Scottish Police Authority board meeting last week that voluntary redundancies would be sought. An internal memo said, in the coming weeks and prior to Christmas, we will launch a dedicated VR/VER intranet mini-site, which will provide details in relation to the scheme's terms, eligibility, application process, an initial suite of FAQs. Basically, everyone who can will get out. They'll go. You're going to lose all that knowledge, all that experience, all that skill. And at the same time, you've got a hiring freeze. The numbers of policemen will fall so spectacularly that there will effectively be no police force in Scotland. This is how bad it's going to be. She said, similarly, a toolkit will be shared amongst those who line manage police staff so that they can effectively support staff in their teams who are interested. The Police Scotland spokesman said, Police Scotland has been very clear about pressures on policing because of this year's budget settlement. These pressures have led to a reduction in police officer numbers to around 16,600, and we're building a service model which reflects that level. And by service model, they means we're only going to investigate the top 5 crimes. Anything else, we're not interested in. Thievery, burglary, any non-violent crime, just not interested in. That's how it is in Scotland now. Expect shops to be almost looted by shoplifters. The police won't care. They're not going to attend. If you own a shop, I suggest you sell up, close up and move. Because you're just fair game now and there's nothing the police will do. I tell you what will happen as a result. There'll be vigilantism. There'll be vigilance committees in local neighbourhoods. And when they do, if ever they catch anyone like committing these crimes, there'll be people stringing them up. There'll be lynch mobs. And quite right too. And once they see a few danglers, what will Police Scotland do then? Well, they'll probably investigate people who did it, rather than stopping it from happening in the first place. Welcome to Scotland. Brave new world. A world without laws. A world where the strong survive and the vulnerable are just at their mercy. That is the ultimate push for the SNP, and there is far, far too late to stop it. I'm coming up. If I am to give you one piece of advice, it would be this. If you live in Scotland, especially in a remote area, I suggest now you rush out, and if you haven't already got one, you obtain a shotgun licence. And then you go off and buy yourself a second-hand one or something, and you keep it very close to hand. Because I have a feeling you're going to probably need it over the next year or so when the police finally collapse. Because after all, once you get rid of the 1,500 that they're trying to get rid of now, that means more work for those that are left. Policemen are already overworked, under-resourced and stressing out. The amount of people that will leave subsequent to this will be horrendous. And then you're going to have what? Oh, let's hire some more cops. But they're all going to be rookies. No one knowing what they're doing. It'll be boy soldiers going into battle. It's not going to be pretty. You need to protect yourselves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Scotland that the SNP want. A lawless shithole. Similar to where the First Minister hails from. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you are suitably scared and are prepared to do something about it. But until next time, stay safe, stay well, and protect your own. Bye.